1 2 1 2 mic check. All right, you guys. That's right. Shoes off. We're gonna talk about the under the ocean stuff because I've been saying for a while now. I'll do another video where I talk about the under the ocean stuff, and then I just keep not doing it. I think because it feels like a lot to remember, because this has slowly been unraveling within my awareness. I don't know, for like a year and a half. But I took a minute to write some things down, to jog my memory a bit, if you will, okay? And so let's chat about it. If you are, this is just going to be free on Patreon. So if you are new, hi. What I'm referencing is that we do work, like group work, whatever, and I'll get into the details of it, in the ocean, utilizing a few different technologies, but working with Atlantean mer people under there, utilizing technology under there, and working with a variety of other beings. But there's a setup under there that we use to carry out specific types of energy work, healing, soul integration, DNA stuff, etc. So that's the story that we are unfolding today. My chest feels kind of tight. I'll tell you why. Because I had a shot in my chai latte like a freak. In addition to, I don't know, sharing, there's obviously a reason why I've been resistant to sharing about all this. I think in general, sometimes it's hard to share about these experiences. I don't know why, but it feels that way. Okay, let's dive in. So, since I started doing sessions, I don't want this to be like an hour long, and sometimes she talks a lot. So the way that I started getting into this stuff was I just started channeling physically. I was a physical conduit whereby there was another energy, another force directly working through me. Or another way you could look at it was the way that I was channeling. Yeah, it was channeling energy through movement as opposed to through verbalizing or through, whatever else. It was like an extension of clairsentience where it was literally physical. And that was sort of, for a long time, how I was doing sessions and how I was working, where we would just connect in and we would just start working on someone's energy. They would just start moving me, and I would feel what we were doing, right? Like I could feel, I'd be like, okay, there's wood around, we're in a tank, and they're showing me it's dead around the outside, and I could feel like this dead stuff, and we're peeling off the dead stuff and pushing it out of your tank. And all of that was just context clues or information for me to be able to understand the work that we were doing. It was symbolism, but it came through as feeling. And I'm sharing this part of it because it was in this first way of doing sessions, of doing work, where I first recognized that we were in the ocean. Time and time again, session after session, I was like, we're in the ocean again. And I knew this because like it kept becoming clear, like, okay, we're going down in the ocean. I could see flashes of it, right? Because as we started doing that, then my other clairs started to come on, and it just slowly evolved. But more than that, I could feel that we were in these tanks in the ocean, and there were cut to clip. I have clips of it. So, because I used to do these like collective sessions, I guess similar to this, but they just looked different back then. So cut to one of those where I referenced the oceans. Now it's almost like the tanks turned into like little bubbles. Each person has this little bubble around them. I mean, this is like underwater vibes. I feel like I'm in Harry Potter, the fourth one. Moaning Myrtle. That's what the other one did. What did she say? The handsome one. I'm talking about the Black Lake, guys, okay? She does work like in water. She sort of puts our energy fields in water. That's just, I don't know where her setup is, and that's just how she's comfortable. They're currently in like, they're water beings that come in support. Right now there's dolphins, and she's saying it's for their frequency. Like, they're making sounds right now. I can hear them, and it's like their sound waves are penetrating our collective field, or collective eardrums, and it's helping to raise our frequency. Yeah, so I'd be like, people have their own like tanks, and they're filling it up with water, and there's a dolphin here now, and there's these other animals here. Like, what is going on? And so it was just kept becoming clear to me that we're working within the ocean. Anyway, a friend of mine in this space who's been doing this type of work, like channeling and being a psychic for a long time, asked to do an energy exchange. And let me just preface by saying this was her interpretation of the energy of what was going on at the time. And it resonated with me deeply at the time, because it opened up my perception or understanding to at least have a closer idea of what was transpiring, because this was such an interesting way of channeling energy, where they would show it to me like a bionic arm. Like, as the bionic arm moved this way, my hand would move this way. And it was such a clear, direct connection that it was just like from a higher dimensional area where the work was taking place to the physical, that it was quite odd. So what she picked up on from it was that there was a currently incarnated version of me. She felt like Syrian. A currently incarnated Syrian version of me who had had broken off a bit of her soul. That sounds so Horcruxy. Other people saw it as like, was projecting her consciousness into these earth-based experiences as a way to specifically help with ascension. Other times it's just felt like she's just a multidimensional aspect, a parallel aspect, which at the end of the day, again, it doesn't matter. There was some sort of pre-planned setup that allowed for this type of connection. And the reason this is important, for two reasons, or two things I want to bring up, is further investigation of this. There were other people that came into my life that did this type of work, that like looked into it, was that she has somewhere, and people have gotten different stuff, right? Somewhere, like, there's a setup in the ocean. There was like a container, and there were people in there that were helping with certain types of work, that were helping with the energy work. Now, when I first found out about this and was kind of exploring it, and again, it resonated, like something happened. I was like, wait, what the frick? I was asking her, I was like, if this is true, and I could feel, I was like, if this is true, like, what's your name? What do you want me to call you? And so this was about 1 year ago now. I was like, what do you want me to call you? And for that whole day, I kept seeing stuff about the ocean. Like, I'd be out walking. I lived in Brooklyn so at the time. I'd be out walking, and the song Ocean came on, like right as I asked that. And then I saw, like, literally, I was just looking ahead at something else, and a billboard or a sign out of nowhere, like, sucked me into its periphery, and it said ocean. And then there was a candle holder thing. And again, the same thing happened, where I was just looking over here, and it's like, it was blurry, and then it zoomed into focus, and I saw ocean, and I was like, wait, are you saying you want to be called Ocean? Or, that was my understanding at the time. So for a long time, I was working with this being, parallel version of self, who we called Osha. And we had this set up in the ocean. Cut to 6 months later, the ways of working had changed, where it felt like I'd been in that rotation and working with that version of self. And then we switched into more of the very specific coding type work, where like you know, the light language turned on, and then we'd bring through frequency via that, which would help with the energy mechanics. And then the light language turned into like literally running lines of code, and you could hear the patterns in it, and it was building stuff. And that to me felt like someone else, a different part of my consciousness. So I say all this to say that it doesn't matter, but it is interesting. Again, bringing it back to the ocean, that I kept seeing ocean. The name we went with was ocean. There was clearly a bunker or a setup down in the ocean. It felt like we were working in these tanks. And there were animals around all the time. And, you know, it is what it is. So for a whole year, I'd moved through that. I'd moved through different, connecting into different aspects of self that had different skill sets, and was working on those. But then for the last 6 months, there kept being this mer person in my field. Like they'd often be like, but can I help you with something? And like, I did more energy exchanges with different friends of mine, and they'd all bring up this mer guy that would be in my field. And finally, at one point, I had a clear enough connection that I was trusting. And I was like, who are you? Where do you hail from? And I got Atlantean, which had made sense because there had been like, and I would not have guessed that. I would have assumed Lemurian. I would have assumed really anything else. I didn't think Atlantis was I know that's like the big thing, that it's an underwater place, but I thought that was actually more, Lemuria was more connected to water. They both are, right? They're just time periods. They're both connected to Earth, which is what's important. The one thing I will say though, that could have helped give it away was, this is going very long, was that in the bunker where this quote unquote other version of me and other people were coming in to help with stuff, there was always crystal energy. It was a very specific location where there was a crystal in the ocean, and other people would bring up this crystal too. And the crystal helped direct a flow of energy. It magnified it. It amplified everything. Anyway, the Atlanteans had been coming through a few times. And then when I was like asking this mer person, who are you? He said Atlantean. I met with 2 other of my friends. They brought up seeing this guy, and they both confirmed Atlantean. I was like, okay, yes. So I then explored that further myself. And from then on, that had sort of reconnected. Like, we were in this phase of kind of connecting all the different ways of working that I had been sort of in training under. We were connecting them all. And so again, I'd be like, hey, we're in the ocean again. And I was just using all the different modalities, but still, I don't know where I was going to go with, but still using the different modalities in the ocean. And there were, the mer people would always be around, and there were like water nymphs, and, I was like, okay, so we're back in the ocean and we're just using the other types of working. So this is interesting. I then met with a friend of mine. Her name is Marissa. Earth to Marissa is her handle. She is a very gifted, she can like remote view, and she can go into the astral really easily and like clearly see. She's I think marks herself as like an Akashic reader. So if you're interested in that type of work, please go to Marissa. She's amazing. Okay, I'm trying not to, I'm like a little fresh. I feel like I've extended this out a long time, but like, that's okay, Kayla. This is just how you tell stories. It's okay. I love you. I meet with Marissa in September, and maybe late August, September. And we just meet and we're just chatting. I hadn't talked to her in a while. We're just chatting for a long time. And then at like the very end, we'd already been talking. We were like, should we do a little bit of work for each other? Let's just kind of like connect in and see. And so we both use light language as a tool for things. And so we both started doing that, and it sort of connected our frequency. And she goes, okay, so I'm seeing us, we're both in the astral, and your astral body is taking me down into the ocean. And I was like, yes, okay, go with that. Because she didn't know anything about how I used to always see myself as in the ocean, or anything about the mer people or anything like that. And so I was like, go with that, see where we take you. And she goes, you're taking me down. There's like a setup down here. And she goes, there's a mer guide with you. And I was like, yes, okay, that's my friend, or whatever. She goes, so he's you and him, we're going down, and there's this like chamber thing, and you're putting me in the chamber. And I didn't tell her anything of like me, because I was freaking out, and I was like, this is the setup I've been talking about, and I just can't see that clearly. Like, this is what I've been experiencing, and I just didn't know. And here she was revealing the whole thing to me in clarity. So she goes, you're putting me in the chamber, and I'm asking if you should come in. I was like, I'm not coming in. I'm like, I'm administering it. And so she goes in, and we like start it, and I erupt in code. I start doing all my stuff, or whatever, like the stuff I do. And afterwards she goes, let me just tell you what I experienced. I was in the chamber. The chamber started to fill up with this liquid of some kind, which, I've done this before. There's different things we can do, but it's almost like, it's like a salt of some kind. I don't know. And she goes, and there were animals around, and they were sending in certain frequencies. And then you were structuring the water. And she goes, what I experienced in terms of like a healing is that, she was like, my DNA died. It literally died. And then you restructured it and then turned it back on. Which I was like, it was eye-opening for me in several different ways, or confirming for me in several different ways, because I was like, and everyone's light language is code of some kind, but I was like, this is very, it's like, you can hear the pattern in it. It's like, it's crazy specific. Cause it'll be like, ash es a I, ash es ash a, ash es ash os. And it's because it's literally pattern encoding it precisely in its precise intended format, because in my consciousness, there's access to the original template, the code, so the way that our template is supposed to be functioning, we have access to that in order to optimize it to its intended formation. That is my understanding. Anyway, so that happened, and I was like, let's ask more questions. And she goes, so here's what I'm saying. It's like a full organism under here, but there's not just one of these chambers. There's like 12 to 24 of them, or they're like pods, and they're made out of like materials from the ocean. There's like coral and coral reef, like stuff like that, made out of from the ocean. Oh, I just thought of the other. And so that's the one that we took her in. But I've since then, like, it's like a whole setup. So there's those, right? Those type of chamber pod things. And then there's other spaces that we have, depending on what's needed, depending on what work is being done. But the other info she found was just that, so this is going to be combined with what she saw and then post channeling stuff that I had done about it. So it's an organism of like 12 to 24. And then since then, I'd seen, like, I would be operating it in future sessions, and I'd seen that it's almost like a pallet that I stand on, specific to this technology we're talking about. There's like a pallet that I stand on over here, or like a little like circle thing. And it literally, it's what powers the machine to run through my frequency. And it's not just me. It's not just like this setup, okay, so the things go around in a circle where if I'm standing on this one here, the current runs through me and that's what allows me to code it or structure or whatever, but that's what powers it in part. It's not just the person standing on this thing. But there's like 5 of these palette things. And when they're all being utilized, it's like, whoa, the whole thing lights up. And it's not just beneficial to the people receiving the work itself. It is beneficial to the water, to the ocean. It does something to the space. And we'll get to that in a minute. Like it sends out that like frequency, that power. It activates the grid. Okay. What's the other fun stuff? So here's the other info she found out from the Mer guy while we were there in that session. First of all, they were calling themselves the Atlantean Health Council. Because I was like, who are they? Like, what should we... And he said, you can refer to us as the Atlantean Health Council. Now, in that particular lifetime that she was looking at, the story that she got about it was that I was a land person at that time. And I worked in like the fields of healing and research. And so we were researching for the best location for this. Like there's some sort of idea for how to culminate lifetimes, earth-based and not earth-based. Like this was very planned out. And not just me. This is a group, okay? Anyway, we were looking for the right location. And the location is based on, like, I think it's like energy from a volcano or something. But again, there's also that crystal there. So we don't have all the details, you guys. And that's why I'm talking about this, because we're going to get to uncover more of it together, because it's really cool. And again, it's certainly not just a me thing. It's a we thing, which brings me to my other point. And this was right after, this came through really, really hard right after I first learned about all of it. And I was channeling more info about it. They were like, it's the unity aspect of it that allows for it to function at its most optimum capacity. It is, and it felt to me like in the Atlantean time period, there was a switch from more of a we consciousness and perspective into more of a me consciousness and perspective. So there's a lot of layers to this, but it's almost like the way that it's maximized, amplified, is by it being not just a one-to-one thing. It's like everyone's energy using it at once creates this like huge power and allows for it to be like it's about the unity of it. It's about like working together in unison. That really, I don't know, they just made that clear. Another thing I want to share about it, I guess, is there's so many things. I'll do subsequent posts about it, but back to the story. So at the time I was a land person working in this specific field or whatever. We were looking for a space. Marissa was acting as like a liaison between that of the water people and the land people. Like that was kind of her specialty. And so we connected with this group of mer people and like set this up. That's another thing, right? It was working together between the land people and the water people. It was like the unity aspect of it that amplifies it. And of course the mer people, the people under the ocean and the animal consciousness, they knew, they had the deeds. They knew where we should go. They knew what materials we could use to yield XYZ. They were specialists of the organisms and, health stuff, the biology available to work with under the ocean. You know what I'm wondering? I might cut it here and we do subsequent stories or videos regarding the different types of technology under there and the other like downloads of information that have come in about it. What do we think? Is there anything else right now that I want to share? I've asked before, so if I go to the bottom of the ocean right now where you guys are set up, am I going to see anything? And effectively the answer is no. Right? They're from the Atlantean time period. How did they present this to me the other day? It was like, just like all the work we're doing, we are acting as the anchors for the work itself to take place in this version of Earth. They are kind of outside of time in a different version of Earth, but it transpires to here through us being the anchors here. Another thing, I guess, just more high level that I want to share is about the connection. I'll share more of that later, but there's a connection here to the Lemurian energy as well, and Lemurian coding also working to activate the ocean beds. And just in general, the work being done, that part of the project was to be of service to individuals who were seeking this type of help. But in doing it, like we talked about, it supports like activating the activating the ocean beds in some way through utilization of this technology. I don't know the details on that, so that's something we could dive into at a later time that I'll write down about. But the other thing I wanted to say is that it's supportive in the collective consciousness as well in some way. I think because of the unity aspect. So yeah, I guess I'll go into more details another time, but that's sort of the high level gist of it, is that there's been many lifetimes and skills learned that have allowed for the culmination of that stuff, of technology, of understanding DNA, of working together in unison, that have created this sort of group project of whatever this is. And again, we've only scratched the surface of what it is, and there's a lot more I want to share about the technology itself and about the different beings we work with and the mer people and all the different stuff we've uncovered so far. But that's kind of the high level gist of it. And I guess, and I'll let me know what questions people have, and then I'll just plan to do another one of these where I go into more detail about the technology itself, the different work that we do. And also, you know, like I said, the two are the same, but they also feel a little bit separate. We're working with the Atlantean collective and all that stuff, but also there's that other kind of aspect of me where her setup feels like a slightly different space than this one. And it's like a bunker, and it's more galactic healing, not earth-based stuff. But the two somehow coincide. But there's also, we go into like other rooms where there's like temples and sometimes we're using water as the conduit for sound, and sometimes we'll switch and use air for the conduit as sound. There's just a lot of really cool stuff seemingly. And yeah, let's learn about it together. And I'm gonna cut it. But thanks for listening. Let me know if anyone has questions about this, or if people are interested in this more or not. And we'll go from there. Even if you're not interested, I'm still gonna share, no offense. Because it's just my truth. It's just my experience. This is real. This is me. All right, love you, bye. Okay, really quick, let me just see if there's anything else that our Atlantean guides want to communicate about this. Caleb, we would like to share that individuals will begin noticing if they are meant to be working in this capacity around the oceanic environment and they will begin to be drawn to, I'll say this collective, as a way to anchor into the inner knowing and truth that they are awakening at this time. Individuals are accessing a different frequency bandwidth, which will continue to allow for the rapid unfolding of the truth that lives within them. Some will feel called to this work because they are in relation to the administration of it. Some will feel called to this work as it will allow for them to further their own transformations at a more rapid rate in a way that is in alignment with their higher intention. Others will feel called to it for the community aspect. There is no right or wrong, only resonance. And we suggest that individuals feel into their truths at this time to further indicate to them what their path is. This feels a tiny bit cryptic. Is this going to turn into something different than what is currently understood? As we have stated, the preference is to allow for the unfolding without pressure or force on any particular outcome. Though we will share that individuals will begin utilizing this technology more, yes. There are some individuals who feel called to it for the aforementioned some might feel more called to it, less of like the work we're doing in particular, as in not meaning like not the science tech stuff of it, but more of like the earth activation aspect of it. This is something, Kayla, that you should continue to unfold in the coming weeks. Okay, I'll write that down. Although I have a friend who probably knows about this. Maybe you've heard of her. Okay, cool.